Municipal officials come from a wide variety of backgrounds, so their experience in municipal government is usually very limited, and so we teach them how to do their job, run their position, about budgeting and their role as a mayor or an alderman or councilman.
Local government is an old saying, but it is definitely the government closest to the people. And it is, the citizens there depend on their elected officials to provide basic quality of life services, basic services that they have to have: water, sewer, good streets, good parks. So local government is probably the most important level of government to just the everyday citizen. I think the biggest role we play for them is training and education. There are a lot of things that they need to know, particularly depending on their form of government. 95% of our cities are mayor-alderman form of government. So this week we're spending a lot of time talking about the roles and responsibilities of the mayor versus the roles and responsibilities of the alderman. So education right now is probably the #1 thing that we can do for them. But also meeting at our annual conference gives them an opportunity to network and get to know their fellow elected officials that are in their area of the state. So networking can become a really good tool for them rather than trying to reinvent the wheel when they're dealing with an issue. If they get to know the elected officials in neighboring cities, they can pick the phone up and call and say, "We're having this issue. How did you guys deal with it? Give us your feedback." So the sharing of ideas is extremely valuable.
Our roundtable discussion today dealt with professionalism in your police department and looking at ways that the municipal leaders, mayors, aldermen, city council members can find ways to not only support their police department, but also give them insights as far as what they should be expecting out of their police department.
Tell us why that's so important.
Well, a number of different things. Of course, one of the things that we talk about here is accreditation, law enforcement accreditation of their department, and how it can professionalize their department, how it can reduce liability, and how it really and truly puts their department on a good track as far as serving their community in all the different ways and different needs that is expected of them.
Our roundtable discussion today dealt with the issue of workplace violence and how municipalities can enact policies which help keep not only their employees safe, but also their consumers, their clients that come into the court clerk's office or the water department. And it deals with the adoption of policies and procedures for assessment, risk assessment, prevention, policies for referrals to appropriate procedures. And there's also a little emphasis on domestic violence in the workplace and how to handle those issues when it is either an employee or a perpetrator who is involved in the violence, whether it's the employee who's a victim or the employee who's a perpetrator, as well as situations in which an individual from outside of the employment comes in and commits an act of domestic violence.
How serious a problem is this in Mississippi?
The problem is we don't really have good statistics on that in Mississippi as far as incidences of workplace violence. Many of them, I'm afraid, go unreported, or when they are reported, they're reported as assaults, but not necessarily in the context of workplace. So we don't really have any specific statistics being collected on the locale of an assault.
What advice do you have for local government?
My advice to local governments would be to go back and review your personnel policies and grievance procedures to ensure that you have a policy that addresses fully the impact of workplace violence in your municipality.
USDA, we have 4 divisions. We have a single-family housing division, multifamily housing division, community facilities division, rural utilities, and also our rural business division. And we're able to provide loans and grants to municipalities, cities, states, cities, towns, counties, to assist them in all types of things as far as community facilities, fire stations, police stations, health centers, businesses coming into the area, in addition to helping and assisting with housing in the area, single-family and multifamily housing.
How can this benefit local government?
With local government, it can assist with our business programs. It can assist in helping to bring businesses to the area, new industries to the area. It assists those businesses in construction, expansion, refinancing, which in turn would help the tax base for the areas, increase their tax base, increase employment, keep businesses from closing, things like that. With our community facility programs, it can enhance their different municipalities in assisting them in purchasing police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, medical facilities, libraries, any type of community facility can assist through our programs in helping those municipalities.
Our roundtable discussion today was about how these communities can actually attract physicians and dentists into those communities, because our program is really about taking students who are primarily from rural areas of the state of Mississippi and mentoring them through the process of becoming a doctor or a dentist and then sending them back out into those communities. And we want these leaders from these towns and these communities, we want them to be a part of trying to attract a physician, because these physicians and these dentists are going to be sought after. And so these people in leadership roles, the mayor and the aldermen in these communities, really need to be about helping to attract those folks back into their communities.
Roundtable discussion dealt with the local update of census addresses, or the LUCA program. It's a once-a-decade opportunity for local governments to receive the Census Bureau's address list, to make changes, additions, deletions, basically a chance for them to look and see what the Census Bureau has for their jurisdiction and make additions. It's a great opportunity for them prior to the decennial census. The census is important because of, one, it's constitutionally mandated to proportion the House of Representatives, and also because it's a lot of money. And actually I have a study from George Washington University. Every person, all the federal dollars that come into Mississippi equates to about $2,100 per person. Every person missed in Mississippi is costing $2,100 in federal funds. So you start multiplying that up, that comes up to real money very quickly.
Well, we're going to be talking with the mayors and other elected officials about how to improve their communities through trees and green space and parks and green infrastructure, basically. Trees provide a lot of benefits, and I like to say they're the basic ingredient for quality lifestyle, because they provide shade and recreation and wildlife habitat, and they process stormwater. They also increase property values. We all have options about where we choose to live, and those places tend to be well landscaped and greenery and those kind of things. And if cities are struggling with different kind of issues, it's a piece of the puzzle that will improve their community.
What role do trees play in downtown revitalizations?
Downtown revitalization is a big part of what we work into, and we call it green revitalization. Because if you're doing revitalization, you're trying to clean up areas, especially areas that are classified as broken window pane type areas. Trees play a big role in that, because if you've got a well-landscaped area, then that area is going to revitalize a lot easier. It's going to be easier to attract people and business and shoppers and tourists and those kind of things.
Mississippi Home Corporation is the state's housing finance agency. We do housing for first-time home buyers. We do rental development investment, very low income, extremely low income individuals, homeless people, people with serious mental illness, and a variety of other programs.
How can local government benefit from yours?
One program we have right now is blight elimination. We are offering $20 million to help towns and counties remove vacant, abandoned residential property. And we also provide housing for homeless individuals. We fund local groups and organizations, and we have those first-time homebuyer programs so people can buy homes with our money.
Well, I've been to 2 tables today. I just came from the LUCA table, which has to do with the census, which is going to take place coming up in 2020. And of course, that's very important for states, counties, and cities, because as you know, we get governmental money for every person that's in our area. So the census is extremely important to be sure that everyone is counted.
How valuable are these roundtable discussions and all the educational opportunities that MML offers?
Well, I think they're very important. It's not only from the information that's imparted by the presenter, but for the information that fellow aldermen or mayor or council persons, share that, what are you doing in your city? How does this affect you? And, we can share that info and hopefully not reinvent the wheel.
I have been in the group that was talked about the brownfield, and I have before sitting on a brownfield at a round table and learned exactly what the brownfield was. It's there, it's unused, it's something that has been used, and you're kind of hesitant to get involved with that property, but there are ways that we can, through them telling us that we can go in, we can clean that property up and make it useful to our town. So
how valuable are these educational sessions?
Oh, these really are. Anything that you want to know, you just look at your little booklet and pick them out and go to, and then you're going to know exactly what you can, how helpful they are.
I attend the roundtable about the right of the cities on the right-of-way, based off of the utility company coming in and want to use our towers or use our right-of-way, that we need to negotiate a good deal. The deal that we've been offering in the past have really haven't been sufficient for the type of service we're providing for the electric company or cable companies.
I went to the one from USDA, Rural Development. I've also been to landscape architecture, to the chiefs of police, and now with the Mississippi Rural Physician Scholarship Program.
What will you be able to take back home from what you've learned here today?
Hopefully some things that we can use as far as with the USDA for grants, possibly for police cars, parks. Learn a little information that I'm going to carry back to our police chief as far as procedures and policies, and with the landscape architecture, that's something we have not employed in the past, but I think it would be a good idea to bring somebody on board.
How helpful have these sessions been to you?
They're always helpful. I've been coming to these MML programs for a while and always bring something back home with me.
I went to the one about the police, and they talked about how their training and accreditation was helping improve their offices and their officers to be better at what they did daily to represent their city.
How will this help you back at home?
Well, I oversee the sanitation and recycling for the city of Oxford, so even though I don't have a police department, the procedures that they are doing, I could steal a lot of their ideas to help my employees become better at what they do.
I talked about the workplace violence and what you should do and how you should be prepared if it ever occurred and come to your city. Workplace violence could happen with anyone. It could happen with your clerk. It could happen with one of your employees. It could happen with a person coming in and complaining about the bills. It's just accordingly. But do you have a policy set up before that? So when someone comes in, when that situation happens, what would you do and how would you handle the situation?
So, what will you be able to take back to your city?
Well, we need to beef up the policy a little bit more, so that we can have a better policy in case something happens, because work violence does happen within your workplace, and we need to be able to handle the situation because there are legal action that can be taken from that.
I went to the roundtable on workplace violence. Very interesting discussion. Talks about policies and safety measures. We hate to think that we live in that type of environment, but we all need to be aware of workplace violence now.
How valuable are these educational sessions?
You can't put a price tag on them. They're extremely valuable. This is my 9th year to be coming to the conference, and we learn something every year. It's easy to pick up information, take back home, and implement it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel because somebody else has already had a problem. So,
and the roundtable discussion that I attended was the auditors from the Attorney General's office, and I've learned a lot from that. I'm newly appointed city clerk, and they gave me a lot of insight on the what the board should prove for the travel for the new elected officials, and some insight on how much travel and what we should pay for the mileage depending on what area we live in. And I sat at another table in regards to when we have a response to domestic violence or bullying on the job or harassment from the citizens or either from some of the employees. And I got a lot of information and some great insight on what I need to do when I go back to my office.
I went to the Mississippi Home Corps Roundtable first, mainly to learn about the blight program where there's available resources to demolish old blighted areas and maybe to get some growth there or to just improve the neighborhood for those that are existing. The other one I went to is planning and development districts, and as mayor we work real closely with our planning and development district to they are our key source of grants, loans for things we need to operate the town, you know, sewer, water, economic development. So they are, instead of we pay part of our budget to support them, but they do a lot to help us in our budget planning and that sort of thing.
That's one of the things I can go back and help some of the homeless people in town to get in touch with these people and see can we get them a place to stay instead of winter is tough on homeless people. Around where I stay, we got a few that don't have anywhere to go, and we have to put them up in hotels and stuff. So we need that kind of help.
So this has been a valuable session for you.
It really has. Yes, sir.
I just left the one on managing public right-of-way, which includes cell towers and contracts with the cable companies, which was fantastic. There's really a lot of things to learn in that. With the planned development units, that was eye-opener. As more and more things are made available through them. And with the Mississippi Home Corporation, let you know what programs and grants are available to help eliminate blight in your neighborhood. They were very, very excellent programs.
I went to the Finding a Physician for a Rural Town, which they go and recruit kids in these rural areas to stay in those rural areas and go into the medical field, where they provide scholarships for doctors and dentists.
How valuable is that for your town?
My town, it used to be, but since we've grown quite a bit, it's for kids that grow up there, it's outstanding because they can get medical school paid for, go to work, and neighboring towns that are 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people, and there's plenty of them around where we live. We live in DeSoto County, so Tunica, Tate, Marshall, Benton, all those counties are just close by. So,
how valuable are these roundtable discussions?
They're fantastic because you get to see points of view from towns of anywhere from 35,000 people to people that have 500 to 1,000 people in there, and it puts a different perspective of, you know, their views, my views, and their problems and ours, and it all comes down to, you know, we're all just doing what's best for the people that elected us.
Mr. Norwood has asked a question that I think our attorney surely could save us with an answer.
The topic of our workshop is, so you're a mayor, now what? And our date today we'll be learning more about how to become a mayor, how to entertain your city, how to govern your city better, and education piece will lead us in better guidance.
As a mayor, what advice do you have for new incoming mayors?
New incoming mayors, just be prepared for the long haul, the extended hours, the long days, challenging ways of your community, just bettering your community as a whole.
How valuable is it for a new mayor to get advice from current or former mayors?
It's always valuable to you for you to get information from someone that has been down that road, who can guide you and lead you in the direction of things they've already been through.
The topic of the session today is vacant, abandoned, and dilapidated properties and what can municipal officials do about it. And the reason why this is really important is because throughout the country we are beginning to see a lot more vacant and abandoned properties, and many times the consequences are very dire. And so most municipalities need to have some strategy to deal with it, and therefore in this session what we're going to learn is what other municipalities have already done and some of the newer ideas that we should be thinking about.
What recommendations do you have for local government in this area?
And so very first thing is that instead of looking at vacant and abandoned properties as a one-shot property problem, we should really be thinking about it as a systemic problem. And that way we can have a long-term, short-term, and medium-term plan to deal with them. And by executing those plans, we can actually expect to see some positive results in what to do about them.
The topic is cost versus value of drinking water. And the reason it's important is that municipalities nowadays are having issues, I'm going to say having money or generating money to keep up with the system or keep up with infrastructure upgrades. So just having boards and aldermen aware of the price that they may be able to charge for this service, because there's a lot more value to it than what we're charging in a lot of cities and a lot of locations.
What is the issue when it comes to infrastructure upgrades to keep drinking water pure in Mississippi?
Well, as far as the drinking water itself, by and large, it's clean when it comes out of the ground, but the fact of getting it to people and keeping it clean is the point. A lot of the equipment that we use, the pipes in place, they have a finite lifespan, so they need to be replaced from time to time. Plus, we have a lot of cities that are growing or expanding, people moving further outside the city limits, so we need to get water to them, so we have to put in additional infrastructure to supply them water.
Educational seminar today was meeting the needs, Municipal Fire Service 101 for the new elected official and also for the seasoned elected official. What we talked about in the program was core basic knowledge and overview of the fire service, funding strategy and tactics, grant funding opportunities. We talked about public-private partnerships, planning for the future, and fire service marketing. And gave the ones in the course just a good overview of general fire service opportunities that are available to help make their departments and their communities better and safer. Well, the main thing is to discuss the issues that are pertinent to the fire service with your fire service personnel. As a newly elected official, you're coming into a new game, so to speak. So there's going to be a lot of things that you need to do your homework and get your research on. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to seek additional opportunities for more knowledge. The biggest thing is that public safety, of course, is paramount in all communities. It's paramount for the public's general safety, but it's also paramount for economic development. So therefore, having a strong public safety service and presence in your communities is important to continue the growth within your community.
Our educational seminar today is on grants, incentives, and community development. We're here to make sure that everyone knows that there are some state help, state resources available, and this is somewhat of an orientation for newly elected people, as well as getting the information out, because about a year or so ago there was some reorganization in the Mississippi Development Authority, and we now have a community development group at Mississippi Development Authority. And it's very important to the local communities, cities, and counties to know about what resources and services we provide.
Today's educational seminar was on the digital age, how technology is changing the way people move and work and just their quality of life.
Give us some examples that elected officials can use.
We're mainly going to talk about how they can use technology to reach the citizens of their town or county, different ways that it makes it easier, and some of the challenges that are included with it.
Give us some examples.
For example, to use something like Twitter, we're going to talk about we did talk about doing a Twitter town hall, how you can have a hashtag and people can join in from their homes and talk about different issues, and you're not trying to bring people into a central location all at once.
What's the value in that for local officials?
We can get more input from our constituents, and we don't have to have a big meeting hall and try to draw them in. They can do it all right from the comfort of their home.
Our educational seminar today is about leadership during disasters. I've started a nonprofit called Leaders Link, and basically what we're doing is capturing and sharing what our elected officials around the country learn when they bring their communities through floods, hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, mass shootings, and we're putting that wisdom at the fingertips of all elected officials around the country so that they can be better prepared for crisis, better able to respond when they occur, and then if they do occur, recover more quickly. Be ready. It can happen to you. It can happen anywhere at any time. Don't be one of those folks who sticks their head, like an ostrich in the sand. Oh, it won't happen to me. My city's safe. We don't face any risks. Well, I've interviewed dozens of elected officials around the country who've dealt with terrible disasters in their communities. They would have told you the same thing the day before their disaster hits. You've got to be prepared.
The topic of our educational seminar today is get elected, stay elected, social media for local elected officials. It's important, and my day job is press secretary for Governor Bryant, and we do social media every single day. It's never been more important to reach out to constituents and to voters on social media. 8 out of 10 Americans that are under the age of 49, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on some sort of social media. So you've got 80% of them now. That even 12 years ago was 5% of Americans were on social media. So as you can see with that growth, it's not going anywhere. Facebook is free, Twitter is free, so there's no reason that local elected officials can't be reaching out to their constituents where they already are, which is on social media.
How can municipalities benefit from this?
Well, one thing we see, whether it be on the state level, federal level, or local level, is budgets. And I talked about that, but social media, for the most part, unless you're running ads, is free. And so free is a good price when you're talking about a budget for a local municipality. So that's one of the best things is that it's free. Also get your message out there. From an ad standpoint, if you're wanting to advertise an event coming up, a festival, you name it, Facebook advertising, Twitter advertising is cheaper than any other sort of advertising out there right now, and it's even more effective.
This particular topic is Advanced Economic Development. It is a required course for the Certified Municipal Official designation. And today we're going to be covering things like how to evaluate an economic development project, working with other agencies, those kind of things. Economic activity in your community, how to measure it, that sort of thing.
How competitive is economic development in Mississippi and around the Gulf South?
Very, very competitive. As you know, most states now offer incentives, so a lot of states are competitive with each other now. Not only that, regions in Mississippi are competitive with each other. The Gulf Coast in particular has done an excellent job attracting economic development opportunities. And I think one of the reasons for that is because they market themselves as a region rather than say one city or one county.
We've had great attendance, and I think so far everyone's enjoying the educational sessions. We have a great turnout this year, and I've heard nothing but great things about the classes.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
They can go to our website. It's mmlonline.com, and they can call our office, which is 601-353-5854.